Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Policy and Performance Scrutiny Panel. I'm Councillor Richard Gomer, for those of you who don't know me, and I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. Just so everyone's aware, this meeting is being video recorded and will be uploaded to the Council's website. So we'll go straight on to item 1, which is apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Cors and Councillor Dedier, and it looks like Councillor Kinlock is probably held up at work. I don't think we have any others. Looks like everyone else is here. Item 2 then is declarations of interest. Members, do you have any declarations of interest that you wish to make? No one's nodding. If you think of anything. Do you think that's?
Do you think? I think it's relevant. No, okay.
Great. Thank you. We'll go on to item 3 then, which is the minutes from the meeting held on the 16th of November 2023. Could I have a proposer and a seconder for signing those minutes, please? Councillor Broomfield and Councillor Asman. Any comments on those minutes? No, we'll take those as agreed then. Item 4 would be public participation, but there are no public here. Item 5 then is my chair's report. Not a lot to report, except to wish you all a happy new year. A little bit late, but this is our first meeting. So, and to say that our next meeting has been moved. It was originally scheduled for the 8th of February. It's been moved to the 15th, but you should all have an updated calendar invite. So hopefully that won't confuse anyone. Nothing else to add, except, you know, we have an exciting year of scrutiny ahead, I'm sure. Updates from task and finish groups. I can start with an update from the graffiti task and finish, which is that we haven't met since the end of last year, but we'll probably bring a report on what we've been discussing in that group. Probably March, I'd have thought, because February is quite full. But we'll bring that to a discussion. Do we have any other task and finish groups?
Housing policy, but we haven't met this year yet.
Yep, and that's not on the agenda either. That's time for a long time. Good, I think that's it.
Yes.
Good, whizzing through. Item 7 then, so sort of first substantive item of business, is the future transport provider roundtable. So pleased to welcome representatives from Blue Star and One Community. Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to ask Callie to introduce the item.
Thank you very much. So today we're going to have a bit of a discussion about public and community transport provision across the borough. So Andy Shaw from Blue Star and Hayley Malcolm from One Community will give a bit of an update on their operations and what's happening within their organisations and any issues that they have that they'd like our support with. And then we've also got a written submission from Phil Dominey from South Western Rail with an update on things that have been happening with the railways over the past year. It's quite an interesting time for transport, particularly because the County Council is looking to adopt the Local Transport Plan 4, we believe in February. And obviously the County Council also is currently consulting on some quite substantial savings, which would impact on both community and public transport provision in the area. So it'll be an interesting conversation. Hopefully councillors will have some questions and a bit of discussion after each of the updates. If you guys are happy, I'll start by reading out Phil's submission. So Phil has sent through the following. The first class of the Arterio trains came into service this week, as per the units stored at the Eastleigh Depot on the London and to Windsor and Eton Riverside route. Although these units will not be in passenger service in the Eastleigh area once fully introduced, this will release the Desiro stock to strengthen the service across the South Western Railway network. The last few months have seen several major issues that have affected services, and we've offered our customers. Back end of 2023, we saw issues with industrial action by the RMT and ASLEF unions. The RMT has come to an agreement with South Western Rail, but ASLEF are still in dispute. As it stands today, no dates have been set for future industrial action. SWR and other train operators have been badly affected by extreme weather conditions, which cause delays, cancellations, and severe disruption across the network. This has also led to several infrastructure failures, including landslips occurring at a couple of points across the network. This has affected train performance for the easterly route, which is currently standing at 79.2% year to date for 0 to 3 minute late arrivals. So trains arriving 0 to 3 minutes behind their standard time. We would like to apologise for the disruption that this has caused. Station travel plans have been written for all stations on the network. The aim of station travel plans is to work with all stakeholders to implement recommendations to promote and encourage sustainable transport links to and from stations. As an example, this could include signage, accessibility improvements, real-time bus information, as well as new cycling facilities, routes and pathways. SWR is working with Eastleigh Borough Council and Hampshire County Council on reviewing these plans for stations within the area. We are awaiting news from the DfT on the access for all bids to make stations at Hedge End, Swanwick and Swaveling fully accessible. The bid for Hedge End is in partnership with Eastleigh Borough Council and Hampshire County Council and was submitted back in 2022, so we're hoping to hear soon. At the 2023 National Rail Awards, Hampshire Community Rail Partnership won for outstanding contribution to society. The CRP continue to do good work around the Eastleigh area, including working with the Scouts to brighten up the planters out the front of Eastleigh's train station, on Xmas and shoebox appeals at Hedge End, and introducing the History Room at Netley Station. In 2023, South Western Rail worked in partnership with the Aegeus Bowl to promote a free shuttle bus for the T20 and 100 cricket matches for rail ticket holders from Southampton Airport Parkway and Hedge End stations. This has proved to be a great success in terms of spectator numbers and helping to alleviate traffic issues in the area on match days. They're planning to meet Aegeus to discuss plans for 2024. There is a new station manager for the Eastleigh area, and I'd be happy to make introductions. As always, I'm available if there's anything else I can help with. Many thanks, best regards, Bill Dominy, the Senior Regional Development Manager at South Western.
So we can't obviously ask them any questions, but I'm sure if we had questions, if we sent them through to Callie, you could.
Absolutely. If you've got any questions, then do feel free to let me know. The Access for All bid, we have been waiting for quite some time now, and we are really hopeful that we will be successful. That would deliver lifts between the platforms, giving proper accessibility to Hedge End Station, which is a really growing station. So we're really hopeful that that will be successful. But yeah, if you've got any questions for Phil, please do drop me a line. Who would like to follow on? Hayley or?
I'll go. I'm quite happy.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
2023, 2024 for Blue Star was quite a massive year. We obviously had a major competitor in Southampton withdraw from the market. So in a very short space of time, we filled the gap. We filled it quite seamlessly, but it was quite difficult. The biggest problem we had was sourcing vehicles. And the problem we had was the manufacturers during COVID contracted. And then after COVID, everyone wanted new vehicles. So the lead times for vehicles became quite extended to practically, it was a year. We can't just buy a bus off the shelf. So we had to find what we had in group, because every group in the whole of the UK was doing exactly the same. They were obviously trying to expand their fleets and get rid of older vehicles. So we have had quite a challenging year with vehicle reliability. That is improving. We have now got vehicle cascades. We've got vehicles into our sister fleets in Moorbus. So we've managed to get vehicles back down into our fleets. So you might see some Moorbus, these running about before Hanson Dorset Trim can paint them. The Blue Star 2, which is obviously the main route that comes through here, that is got new vehicles on order. And we have been told, unfortunately, the main manufacturer in the UK is ADL, and they've had a recent cyber attack, and so their production has slowed So where we thought we were going to get vehicles probably February, March, we reckon it's probably now going to be probably March, April. So we're looking forward to get that. That would be a step change in reliability on it. The Blue Star 2 is growing. It's doing really, really well through 2023. And then obviously in September, we grew again, where Cllr Bus decided to withdraw from the market as well. So the routes were all kind of linked to Barton Peveril. We've expanded into Barton Peveril, and once again, we had to source more vehicles, and that's when it got quite colourful. Round about Eastleigh, where we had Salisbury Red vehicles, we had Southern Vectis vehicles helping us out, and we had more bus, and then obviously the vehicles coming from Southampton as well. We moved into a bigger depot, the old first depot in Southampton as well. That when we moved in there, that seen a lot of challenges as well, because the previous occupant hadn't spent much money on the building. So when we moved in, we found that we had to spend quite considerable amount of capital to get the building up to our standard. And that's all gone now. The engineering team are doing wonders and getting the vehicles up to our standard, if that makes sense. So we have kept the operation. We still have an outstation in Eastleigh and Barton Park, where we've got 33 vehicles kept in there, mainly for the Blue Star 2, and the Blue Star 1, and the Blue Star 3, and the Blue Star 5, and Barton Peveril stuff as well. They rotate going down to Empress Road to get maintenance and things like that. So we've got about 60 people still working out of Eastleigh. So it's still, there's still plans where it could expand the Eastleigh operation, which we're quite hopeful. 2024, we've got an uplift of the Blue Star 1 coming in April. We've got the Hampshire VSIP money. So we'll be expanding up in the frequency from every 20 minutes up to every 15, expanding with another 2 vehicles going on to there. So that should hopefully get the reliability. We've been challenging, the reliability in the Blue Star 1 has been challenging recently due to mainly the A34 M3 junctions. We all know we've all been to Winchester and it's been really, really busy. So we have had lots and lots of challenges, because when something happens in M3, everything goes down, obviously, the Autobahn. That has a marked effect on the Blue Star 1. So we should see a lot of impact on reliability with that. The £2 fare has been fantastic for us. We've seen massive growth. Interestingly, we've seen lots and lots of growth in Southampton itself, in the city, but that has been, we don't know if that's been marked because it's only one operator and the reliability has been good, or if it's because the £2 fare hasn't really impacted there. It's been more the longer distance services. So the Blue Star 1 and the Blue Star 2, we have seen a marked increase. Sorry, I've been dying with the cold for as long. So we are seeing lots and lots of growth on the Blue Star 1, which is really, really good. So we have signed up for the £2 fare until at least June. The government's, obviously, there might be, someone said about an election or something this year, and we're hoping that no matter who gets into power, it's a good news story and keeps that going. The mechanism for repayment, whether it's right, we don't know, but it is covering our costs just now. And what we are seeing is massive growth. So that is quite good. That's quite good. Is there any questions that you'd like to ask about the network?
Sorry, it's a comment, I'm sorry, rather than a question. But as I have my ear vent, I'm just the man who knows.
Yeah.
I've got one neighbour who's a regular bus user going from town here into Southampton. She is very upset with the attitude of the staff at the office in Southampton.
Oh, right.
They appear to be not very helpful. As I say, she uses the bus virtually every day. She gets very frustrated when she goes on an app to find because it should be good. It should tell her how far away the next bus is, but it's not working. So she has been in Southampton, where she has waited for over an hour because one has been missing. And I mean literally missing. On one occasion, she was stood there and had been there so long. She went into the office and she said, look, you know, when are we going to see a bus? I've been here an hour now, and what's happening, please? Oh, well, we've lost a bus.
Yeah.
We maintained, somebody had taken, a driver had taken the bus out, but they didn't know where he'd gone with it, and they had no way of contacting it, so they said. So, I mean, it's all, I mean, she comes back with these stories, and I think, well, it's not just her. I mean, I have had complaints, but customer services at that end, I think, you know, they're not very happy.
That is interesting, actually, because the guy that's in the travel shop, we've got two guys in the travel shop, Tim and Bill, and they've been in there for a long time.
Yeah.
And we have an office in town as well, just above the travel shop, and we spend quite a lot of time there. And they are really good. We get lots of people writing in saying how good Philip's been to sort things out. So I'm quite surprised at that, to be perfectly honest.
Anyway,
And in terms of Townhill Park, I can give you some horror stories. All I'll say is Cobden Bridge.
yes,
So
that I fully appreciate.
where they've said they've lost buses is probably, he's probably used, we say it's a technical term, because we can see a bus leave and say that we call it the cycle time to go from, say, town to Townhill Park and then back to town. And we have sent it out in the cycle time. We say the cycle time is an hour. We've seen often in an afternoon peak, the bus will leave town and 2 hours, 15 minutes, it's still tracking and it's still stuck in traffic all round. We have put more resource in since first left the 7, and we have put another 2 vehicles into the mix to try and make it reliable, and it's not reliable. It's not reliable, especially recently with roadworks on Cobden Bridge and Thomas Lewis Way Junction. It's been quite bad. When we had the bus lane from Bitter into town, the 16 on the other route we used to Townhill Park, the route got up to nearly 95, 96% reliability constantly. When the bus lane disappeared, that dropped down to nearer 72, 73% during the afternoon peak. And it's really difficult, because one night it could be fine, and then the next night it's really, really bad. So congestion is our nemesis, to be perfectly honest. Eastleigh is a perfect example. Congestion in Eastleigh for the Blue Star 2. The cycle times that we have put on the Blue Star 2 is expanded and expanded. I've been with Blue Star 6 years, and the cycle time has increased by nearly half an hour, just to try and keep it reliable. And it's a massive cost when you think that the cost for running a bus is in the region of about £200,000 just bare cost a year. So to add more resource, more buses into the cycle time, it does become quite expensive. But if your constituent has issues, you know, I can give you my email address and get them to just email me direct. That's not a problem.
That makes just one other thing. For Townhill Park, for West End generally. It's not your problem, but we do have difficulties with our GP practices there, and they're asking people to go from West End into the General Hospital, to Bursledon, to Head Gen, all over the place. Hospital visits are a real problem, insofar as there is not a direct route from Townhill Way into the General Hospital. Now, at one time, they did institute a route, they lost people that were running it, where as it was then the number 8 bus, when it terminated behind the stores, behind Primark, it then changed itself into another number bus, which went to the General Hospital. So people really, they were permitted to sit on the bus and have the free journey. I just wonder, could I ask that perhaps that could be looked at again, because there is a high percentage of older persons in West End and surrounding areas. And as I say, their life is becoming more and more difficult. They're having to travel to hospitals on public transport. if they have to change, some of them really aren't just up to it.
Yeah, I mean, it is an aspiration. We have a bucket list of things that we would like to do. A lot of the time it's resource and driver resource. So we did look at, when we took over the network, it was one of the lights that we didn't take on. It has been an aspiration of ours, especially the Bittern area, that northern corridor doesn't have a direct service to the hospital. So it is something that yeah, it's on the bucket list.
I was going to say, if I could ask you to go on the bucket list, I'd be grateful. Thank you very much indeed.
Actually, building on what Janice has just said, also in West End, in Moorgreen Road, is where the doctor's surgery is, there's quite a high proportion of older residents. There's a caravan park.
Yeah.
Lots of retirement property. And there's no bus service. So anybody who lives in Moorgreen Road, sort of far end, has to struggle up to the village, which, if you're sort of in your 70s or 80s, actually means quite lots of people are going to just getting out. So what you're building your bucket list is that a decent service in Moorgreen Road, that would be extremely helpful.
Okay.
So building on both of those, there's a general question here around how routes are planned, and it'd be interesting to hear a bit more about that. So I know in some cities the bus routes never change, and the bus routes follow where they used to have a tram. And I don't think we're quite that bad in Southampton.
Not far off, to be honest.
But I would be interested to hear a bit more about how you decide where the bus route goes, how we might go about sort of offering suggestions about where it might go.
Yeah. In our experience, bus routes are commercially viable and successful when there's stability. If you get an operator that will change routes year on year because the number of passengers has dropped or something's changed, what happens is the network as a whole usually shrinks. And it's one thing about Go Ahead that are really, really good, and Go South Coast is that we won't. It was never a flash in the pan. We'll try something. We'll give it a good go at running it. And what we found is, I can give you two perfect examples in Southampton that our previous competitor, they pulled off two routes, and we looked at it and we thought, well, the demographics of the housing estates and where the main roads are and where it is compared to the other bus routes, it should be a good route. One was the route from Sholing into town, and we started running it, and it goes right across town to Millbrook and then into the General Hospital. We started running it, and to begin with, the passenger numbers were quite low, and now we ran it with single deckers, and year on year, month on month, we were seeing not a lot of growth, but we were seeing growth in the service. So we will run a service, and now we've actually got to the point that the 7 needed double deckers, and we're now looking at an enhanced Sunday and enhanced evening service for it. And the other one is the 13 that we run to Harefield. Harefield have a bus, how can you put it, committee, their campaign group, and they're really, really nice. They're really, really good people. We looked at Harefield all the time that us were reducing the service and reducing the service. And we were looking at it and we were saying, well, look at the demographics of Townhill Park, Harefield and Thornhill. They're all reasonably quite similar. They're roughly about the same size. Why is Harefield not doing really well? And we were running a competitive service to the other two estates, and we were doing really well. We were seeing growth in these services. So when first decided to withdraw from the market, we made a commercial decision that we were going to have give it a really, really good go. And we gave them an evening service up to 10 o'clock. We've enhanced it to, first we're only doing it, I think it was every 75 minutes. We've put it up to every 30 minutes. And to begin with, it was okay, to the point now it's doing really, really well. So we were very good at, we will sit down and we will look at, and not even just services, we'll look at each journey and what is carrying. And we've got a sort of line. If it's carrying X amount of people, yeah, it's doing okay. And then when we get to a certain point, they will then look at an earlier journey, and we'll do a lot of research on who's using the bus. We get a lot of data from our travel passes about where people get on, the ticket machine data. So we do a lot of that. And then so when we're building the routes as well, it's I mean, if you look at the Blue Star 2, there's a lot of people around here remember when it was at 48, when it was go back, and there's not much change. The Blue Star 1 was at 47 back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So you can see that there's that stability all the time. Whereas if you look at other operators, they'll change the routes, they'll change this, people can't keep up. And so I think that's how we develop the service, and it's all about developing it sort of on organically growth, just small steps at a time. The 18 is a perfect example of we on a Sunday, when I started, the first journey on a Sunday was at 6:15. But every time we would meet and we would look at the journeys and who was travelling and how many people were travelling, we were like, right, okay, this is up to like 30 people a journey every Sunday at 6:15 in the morning from Thornhill. Where are they going? So we were doing some research and looking at a lot of people. It was like, as you said, it was people working in the hospital trying to get to control to the hospital. So we put an earlier turn on at 6:45, and within 6-7 months that was up to 25, 30. So we're looking, and pre-COVID, to be honest, we were at Barton Park. We were getting to the point where parking was becoming an issue. So we were looking at the growth on the 17, the Blue Star 1 as well, pre-COVID. And so we were looking at, do we start running the last bus on the 18 was at 1:30 going into the depot, and the first bus was leaving at 3:44. Do we just bridge that gap and put a night service on, and it alleviates the parking issue? So yeah, it's quite an interesting art. It's quite an interesting art. But yeah, Go Ahead are quite good in that they'll not run something for 6 months and say, well, it's not reached that profitability, or we're just going to pull it. We're looking at how many people are actually using the service, where are they going, and how do they do it. So it's quite good.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, you mentioned sort of drawing on data to do that sort of demographics and stuff. Is there good quality data about where people are trying to get before you put a route in, or do you have to sort of make a
lot of the time? Yeah. There's a guesstimate about where people are going. We obviously talk to people like yourselves. We talk to community groups, and what do you want us? And that's kind of where we start. We take a baseline and then we sort of work up from there.
Thank you. Any more Blue Star specific questions? Otherwise, we can bring Alien soon. Go on, James.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for tolerating me being here, because I can't be on this committee, and it's great to see some folk that I've worked with in the past. But we've declared a climate change emergency, of course, and we're great believers in public transport as much more efficient in terms of getting people around than sitting in private cars. And Cllr does some great work on active travel as well. But do you actually, when you were answering Richard's question about analysis of route usage and opportunity for route growth and all the rest of it, do we actually consider the climate change considerations there? Because take your number one bus, which I use frequently and think is a fantastic service, although it has been quite disrupted. Problems at Central Precinct in Chandler's Ford as well haven't helped that, as well as the ones that you've mentioned quite recently. But I'm just a little anxious that if you put on another 2 buses and make it an every 15-minute service, and those buses are 10% or 15% less loaded than fewer buses, that actually per passenger mile worsens the climate situation rather than improves it, because your buses are much improved in terms of European compliance standards, but they still pump out emissions to a considerable extent. And so that's my first question. If I can carry on, my second related question is, this new tranche of buses that you're bringing in, have they yet better environmental credentials? And related to that, is there a vision for electric buses, which I know Portsmouth managed to get some huge grant to get support on? Can we do anything in Eastleigh? Can we support you to move more quickly to an electric footprint? And if that isn't enough, can I ask one last question, which is seeking information? which is that we've got up and running, and thanks hugely to Cllr and Cllr Broadhurst support, a little 44 bus in Hilton Green, Chandler's Ford, which is the area I represent. And we cannot get a straight answer to how much cash gets collected from central government when people use bus passes. Sometimes I'm told it's 50% of the standard fare, sometimes I'm told it's 70%, and then I'm told, well, we don't really know either. I mean, it seems like witchcraft that nobody really understands. It seems to me it should be quite straightforward what proportion of the fare, when somebody clocks on with a bus pass, is effectively collected from central government.
To answer the third one, the short answer for me is that is witchcraft. I'll be honest with you, that's something that I don't know. I do know that the mechanism changes depending on what council it is and what council agreement it is. But it does come down to the council, the actual Hampshire Council, Southampton City Council. So it does come down to that, the different agreements and what is negotiated. And I know there is a lot of negotiation goes on, but that is done by our finance team and our planning team. Who I don't have access to. Your first question is a really, really good one. We are sitting on a Blue Star 1, I would say, running about 85, 90, maybe a bit more capacity. Pre-COVID, we were running at 99% capacity on the Blue Star 1. So we actually have a regular person that gives us updates. It's like a mystery shopper that lives in Chandler's Ford. He's in the Rail Community Partnership. He uses Blue Star 1 constantly, and he's constantly telling me that he's struggling and he's so close to everyone because the buses are so full, especially when he's coming home from the football on a Saturday afternoon. This is the reason that we are putting the service up to. We get to a point where we have to increase the capacity because at peak times the capacity is full. So it's all about, yes, to begin with, probably the amount of people travelling will reduce on each bus. That's what we want, because we want to try and make more space for more people. Because what we're seeing is month-on-month growth is quite massive, especially the £2 fare. The £1 fare after 6 o'clock at night, the leisure market in Winchester, I'm sure the taxi drivers are not happy with us. And we do the last bus out of Winchester, we livened up, as we would say. It used to be get to Winchester and then the driver just put the lights out, go down the motorway to Eastern Depot, park it up. We livened that up, as we say, so it's now a live journey, and it leaves Winchester at 00:35. And on a Friday and Saturday night, we're regularly seeing 60, 65 people paying their £1 and taking taxis or journeys away and going on the bus down to, hopefully cars as well, down to Chandler's Ford. So we have to put the capacity in to get more people off. So to begin with, yeah, you're right, it will probably be less people travelling, but the growth factor will soon toss it up to, hopefully we're looking at putting up to every 10 minutes. Yeah, that's the achievement for us. The second one is electric vehicles. Where do I start?
Well, hybrid.
Hybrid's old technology on buses, and British Aerospace and ADL in around about 2010, 2011, they were producing lots and lots and lots of hybrid vehicles. The problem was, in a previous role, I ran nearly 35, 40 of them. I never in any one day ran all of them on the same day. They were so unreliable. The generators would last 6 months, a year, and it was £45,000 a generator. So it's a lot of £1 fares you've got to collect to get another generator. So what you'll find is out with London, hybrid vehicles, a lot of them are either being scrapped or they're actually being converted into Euro 6 diesels. Electric, we'd love electric. We go ahead in London are one of the biggest fleets of electric vehicles. There is still technical issues. You've probably seen in the news today that one of Go-Ahead's 4-week-old electric buses went up in flames, £500,000. So I don't think the technology is still not 100%, but it is better than Euro 6 diesel, yes. Hydrogen, there is if anyone wants to have a look in Aberdeen, I dare say it's first, but they are on to their next stage of hydrogen vehicles, and it's completely and utterly carbon free. They've got a wind farm specifically for this plant just off of Aberdeen, and that is producing electricity to Aberdeen's obviously got a lot of water. It comes out of the sky, and they have got a plant that's run by Aberdeen City Council, and the buses feed into the hydrogen plant, and then obviously it's just stage 2 opens out back. The Go-Ahead have just commissioned a hydrogen fleet in Crawley, or just near Gatwick, and they have an issue in that there is one person in the health and safety executive that can sign off hydrogen plants in the UK, and he's currently off sick. So they're currently bringing in hydrogen in a tanker to run just to get the experience and get the hydrogen buses up. But that technology is not quite there. We bid for the first round of Zebra for our Unilink fleet. Unfortunately, we weren't successful. Then we found out that Southampton has an electric problem, and we've been told that we'll not get electric into our depot until 2036. So we are looking and exploring all different things and working with the CFP and how we can overcome that. In Southampton City Council, there's a bigger issue with the port electric support supply for the port as well. So we would love to have electric. We would go down the electric route tomorrow. The University of Southampton is desperate for their Unilink fleet to become electric. But yeah, we have lots and lots of challenges so far, and that is why when we did need to order new vehicles. So that's why we decided to go for Euro 6 new vehicles that are coming in. Euro 6 is the best. Euro 6 spec on a bus and a truck isn't like Euro 6 spec on a car. The emission standard at the back coming out the tailpipe is a lot less. It's really quite good. So hopefully that answers some of your questions.
Yeah, it could be a very long debate. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just come in? I'm aiming this probably at Callie. I'm trying to answer some of James's problems. I like James and Chelmsford, so I use the one as well. It's a good service. I think I was on it just when we had the breakdown, the roadworks by the central precinct. Got on about 4 o'clock to come home, and it was the most crowded I've ever been on any bus. We got on to the station, so we got seats. No, the thing about fares for those who've got the bus passes, like me. If I remember right, it depends on the individual council how the deal goes. At one stage, I think Southampton were paying per journey, and I think it was Hampshire just paid a blanket sum to the bus companies for running that service for them. So there was no payment, if you like, per journey. They were just paid so much per year for taking concession fares.
It does vary depending on the highway authority. So the county council negotiate with operators around the reimbursement that's received. The county council have a pot from which they need to
reimburse from central government.
Yeah, and it's all in the actual SP25 consultation document. Yeah, it's all listed in there for Hampshire. Yeah.
So by one group getting more money, another one's getting less. If it's a limited pot, doesn't seem rational, does it?
Yeah, we could do it more.
Super. I want to bring Hayley in to tell us about community transport and One Community, because I'm sure there's lots of questions actually that touch on both. So
So thank you for having me. I'll just give you a little brief about who we are and what we are. So One Community is a charity, first and foremost, in Eastleigh. Community transport is one of our projects. So community transport covers a Connect service, which used to be Dial a Ride, Parish Link, Car Share Scheme, etc. And then we have our community hire, which is a minibus service where community groups, day services, lunch clubs, friendship groups, schools, caring organisations can hire our minibus to have. It might be that they're going to go for a couple of hours somewhere, or they might do a full day out on a day trip somewhere. Okay, and we hire them at a subsidised rate because they're a member of our organisation. Connect. Pre-COVID, we made approximately 12 to 13,000 journeys a year, reach about 900 to 1,000 journeys every month, and that's trips per individual person. So individual people being taken on a trip. Now we are recovering well. We're getting to nearly 700 to nearly 800 now for the last year. It's just such a vital service, our Connect service, for those who are isolated, are vulnerable, and what we've recognised in the last year, we've had the withdrawal of the fares being reduced for those with older purpose bus passes or concessionary bus passes. They now have to pay a fare stipulated by Hampshire. We were really fearful, I guess, that we were going to lose a number of passengers, and actually we haven't. Our passenger numbers have remained pretty steady, because I think it just shows the essential service that they are as services. And journeys that used to maybe cost £1.60 now cost a minimum of £4, but it's the impact that journey has on that individual's life, and then the relief it has on other services around them, that makes it so vital in the connecting, bringing people in and connecting to their communities. And that's like taking them shopping, to the doctors, to the dentist, wherever it may be. Community hire is about mainly about geographical isolation for groups, or social isolation for groups, and supporting their health and well-being ultimately. For some of our really lonely residents of Eastleigh, being able to take a group of 16 every Monday to go and have a hot lunch and just have time out from their home, and they're isolated, is great. It's really impacting. Yeah, don't want to witter on too much. We have 1,400 clients registered on our books to use our service. We have regular use from about 800 of those a month. Okay, and it might be that they're going for one trip a week, or they're doing a trip on a month, or they're doing a trip a fortnight, or whatever it might be. It might be that they're using the Connect service. It might be that they're a member of a group under community hire. 88% of them are older people, so they're stipulated as people with an older person's best pass. 12% of them are concessionary, so we have individuals who have got sensory needs, learning disabilities, neurodiverse, disabled, whatever it may be. Our groups that use us under our group hire are we have 100 groups, 65 of them use us regularly currently. Pre-COVID, we had nearly 200 groups using us, but COVID brought a lot of change. A lot of groups shut down, a lot of them closed down for varying reasons. 13% of them support children and young people who are classed under the priority group focus, such as NEET, young carers, children living in poverty, to access the community. Yeah, just trying to. Last year, we had a real challenge in the fact that we had to, Eastleigh Borough do a great job in providing to the compound from our fleet of minibuses. We have 12 minibuses. We were situated over at Dutton Lane. Your colleagues have done a wonderful job in getting us relocated up to Stonycroft Rise, which is a temporary situation for us. It's not great. It's not ideal. It's a plaster for us, you know, and we're very grateful for that. But that is one of our biggest. We need a good compound for our fleet, is the bottom line, to keep them safe, to keep them safe and to keep them accessible, and to ensure that we have good access for our staff and our volunteer drivers, etc., etc. So yeah, we have a compound and we're very grateful for that, but it's not we're not there for 5 years, 10 years, it might be a year, you know, and it's just all that upheaval. It's quite an operation. I can't imagine what it's like for Blue Star to move all their buses, but for our little fleet of 12, it's quite an upheaval to move them, as well as ensure that we are meeting the need of our clients and our community around us. You know, these are some real hitting headlines for me in the impact that our service has on the local community. When we had, you know, during COVID, we ran the vaccination clinic minibuses. So I've lost count of the number of people that we took to vaccination clinics to enable them to get their booster. Without that service, it wouldn't have happened. During COVID, our minibuses took thousands and thousands of shopping deliveries and prescription deliveries for vulnerable clients throughout the borough of Eastleigh. We supported the Afghanistan refugee programme to attend some vital health clinics, as well as their mosque visits that are really important to them. We support the Remember Members Parade. We support the local basics bank and ensuring that the residents of Eastleigh, especially during this cost of living crisis, have food. Ultimately, and it's those bottom lines. And I think that the luxury that we have in our drivers is they're trusted adults by our passengers, and they build up such a good rapport. They're able to highlight safeguarding and health and safety needs. And we supported so many. One community have been a recipient of a household support grant for Eastleigh. We had quite a substantial amount of money, nearly £25,000 to support passengers last year. Will support our clients who are struggling with the cost of living and the mental health crisis. And yeah, a number of those are passengers on our transport who have other vital services like care services. They visit the doctors, they see social prescribers or whatever they may have. However, they were living in poverty, and we helped them be able to heat their home or put food on their table. And you wonder if they didn't have that through our driver, and it was our drivers that brought it to our attention. Do you see what I mean? So for me, it's just the important place, the bridge that we create to the community to keep them safe. Because our clients, our passengers are vulnerable people, regardless of whether you look at age or whatever you look at, they're vulnerable individuals. So yeah, it's a real vital link, and doing the consultation for the SP25 is really important for us. And we're putting in some really well, we're just trying to support our passengers for them to be able to have a voice, because it's online and many of our passengers don't have access to the internet or have the ability to use a smart device, or, you know, so we're trying to support them the best we can to ensure they have a voice and they're able to explain how impactful the service is to them and what a lifeline is. I was talking just today to one of my colleagues. We have a 95-year-old lady who lives in central Eastleigh, and she has no family and no friends, and once a week our bus takes her into the centre of Eastleigh. She lives in the centre of Eastleigh. It's a mile run so she can get her shopping. Without that service, she wouldn't get her shopping. She's on a housewife pension, gets pension credits. Her income is very short and small, you know, and we support that lady so she's independent, keeps her independence, because that's the most important thing. Many of these people that have stepped down from the Blue Star, and they now come onto our bus to, I guess, have to, well, feel a bit safer, door to door, you know.
So I guess you touched on that subsidy that supports the service. If you didn't have that subsidy, what would that mean for sort of, I guess, the viability or the fares you'd have to charge?
Yeah. So for me, it's about, I don't know, the subsidy is so important, and I think it just plays so much into the impact it has on the passengers. You know, buses, we have a fleet of 12. We replaced 2 buses last year with 5-year-old buses. We're constantly having to replace buses or look to replace buses, modernise them. Electric would be my dream come true. But yeah, I think that without that subsidy, I would fear how we would sustain ourselves. You know, as much as there's charities, there's grants that would be supportive of social isolation and all those sorts of things. Actually, yeah, it's just a piece of work that we'd have to do, isn't it? And that's fine. But it's just so important to, I think for me, it really, I don't know, I think that our passengers are proud to use that service, and they're grateful because of the subsidy that comes from HUC and EBC, you know. So yeah.
There's something in there as well, though, isn't there,
Mm.
around the way you're able to plan and deliver services by
Yeah.
having a consistent funding arrangement.
Mhm.
That grant funding is
It's short term,
and,
yeah.
and
And it changes.
that does have a big impact on kind of the level of commitment you can make
And
the
the
level of
strategic
investment
view
you
of,
can make.
of moving it forward, like, you know, we have an aging population, but what we've seen most recently is that actually our age of users is becoming younger. So we're having a rise in concessionary bus holders, and that could be down to mental health, anxiety, where they can't get on a Blue Star bus of 60 people because that's too much for them. But they can use our service and they're safe and they're now reconnected to their community. They might not have been for 6 months because they thought, I can't get out of my house now because I can't get on the bus. You know, for whatever reason, we all go through crisis, we all go through these situations, and it's just about that word of mouth to get us out there. Yeah.
Okay, great. To pick up on that subsidy point with Blue Star then, so I know obviously that's one form of subsidy for the community transport. As I understand it, some of the Blue Star routes are subsidised as well. Is that the case from Hampshire or from Eastleigh?
Most of our services are probably 99% of our commercial, they don't take
Okay.
any subsidy. There has been some grants to kind of kickstart services. We're looking during the BSIP and we're getting some money for kickstart. Looking up some services, we've got some money from Hampshire to get the Blue Star 1 up to 15. And we're looking at Southampton's giving us some money, but it's not, the majority of services are all commercial.
Okay. Okay, so I guess sort of public subsidy cuts less of a concern for Blue Star. And of course, I guess that money to kickstart routes would still come through Section 106, so it wouldn't be
Some development related contributions will be secured, yeah. So we've got some funding towards Blue Star 2 alterations when Highwood Avenue opens in what we hope will be February. Yeah, it has been a bit questionable when it will open, but we think now it will be February. So there will still be opportunities to secure contributions towards improvements from development. So particularly sites like Horton Heath will be making investment into public transport. But obviously there are routes that, you know, where subsidy can add value, and perhaps more of those are run by smaller or other operators. So Stagecoach, who aren't with us today, they run services which are subsidised by the county council. The route into Hamble, for example, used to be subsidised by both the county and EBC, and that extended the hours of operation of that service. So subsidy can increase frequencies, it can add to the morning and the evening, to extend the duration or the days of operation. Bank holidays and Sundays where demand is lower, and that kind of thing. But Blue Star are very fortunate to have some very strong commercial operations in our area.
good. I've got lots more questions. I'd go all night. Does anyone else have any? I'll carry on. I guess building on that sort of planning discussion of sort of kick-starting new routes, we're going into our local plan review. So I guess there is a question of how we might sort of consider public transport within that sort of strategic spatial planning function. Do you have any opinions on how we should be thinking about whether it's new routes or adjusting existing routes, or should we be looking at completely new things like, I don't know, trying out demand responsive type services? I don't know if Callie wants to add any of her thoughts on this, but if there's any feeling on what you'd like to see from a council that was sort of setting spatial planning policy around sustainable transport.
I think the biggest, as I said before, the biggest nemesis for us is congestion. If we could, Eastleigh is obviously built as a hotspot, and it seems to be getting worse. Southampton Road just becomes a car park. It's usually Queen's Park Road. So if there's something we could do surrounding so congestion, that to strengthen the routes. I mean, our managing director has always been very clear that if we can reduce the number of resource that it's on a cycle time, he's quite happy not to say, I'm going to take that resource and pocket the savings. He's quite happy to say, if it's going to grow our network, he's quite happy to say, well, I'll take that vehicle. If the councils are providing a means for us to reduce that resource, we'll take that resource and we'll give you that resource to something that is maybe not quite as strong. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for us is congestion. I mean, I know we've got TCF money coming for
Bishopstoke Road.
Bishopstoke Road and things like that, which we're all quite excited about and everything. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see over the next few years how we can tackle congestion.
I think Eastleigh is quite unusual in that we only have one section of bus priority measures in the whole borough at present. So the Bishopstoke Road will be our second improvement scheme.
Yeah,
and actually we're in discussions with Blue Star and Southampton and Hampshire councils as well about how we can introduce further bus priority measures across the region so that services can build that level of reliability. And obviously those improvements also provide support to make sure that community transport services get those benefits as well. Part of the challenge is space. Is space on the network, and I think that the direction of travel in planning policy and transport policy, so really prioritising public transport, walking and cycling, hopefully that will help to readdress that balance away from private car use towards improvements to give public transport that edge over over individual journeys.
Yeah.
Improve journey times. Yeah.
Okay. And Callie mentioned you mentioned specifically potential enhancements to the routes out through Hedge End from opening up some old part of Botley Road.
Yeah, so there's a section of Botley Road in the Southampton City region, which was closed when the motorway was built, which would be a perfect bus gate with improvements at junctions at either end of that, so that journeys into and out of Hedge End and the surrounding area, so Hedge End, West End, Botley, Horton Heath, that kind of area would all benefit. And the county council is going to use some of the BSIP, so the Bus Service Improvement Plan funding, to review the proposals that were drawn up a decade or more ago, looking at that proposal. So I'm quite hopeful that we'll start to see some proper investment in bus infrastructure, priority infrastructure coming forward. But yeah, that could be quite transformative for the Hedge End area, we think.
Yeah, Hedge End's definitely on the bucket list what we're talking about there on. When we started the 14 into Hedge End and the old First Aid, and the route, it didn't, to begin with, we thought that was going to be quite one of the strongest routes. It didn't really perform at all, and we've done a little bit of a tweak. So it only went to Hedge End Station and stopped, and we were like, well, where is it actually where people want to go? And so we have made it kind of a bit of a circular to go round the estate into obviously the superstores and then go back round, and we have seen quite a marked improvement in people using it since then. But Hedge End itself is something that is on our development plan. Obviously, when Horton Heath comes on stream in the next 5 years, we're going to see marked improvements in how we go. Our development team are actually they get quite excited about new developments and things like that. So they've got all these different ideas and plans and sort of things that they're doing. So Hedge End, yeah, over the next 4 or 5 years is something that we'd like to see.
Great. So I live in West End, which is on that sort of Hedge End corridor. I think certainly one of the barriers when I think about buses is that we're just the wrong side of that zone change from Southampton to Southampton Extra, which, as I understand it, pops the price up a bit. How do you decide where that arbitrary line goes? And if the service frequency were to, say, increase and these bus priority was put in, would there be any possibility of reviewing where that line was to bring more people who are potentially commuting into Southampton into the city proper, as it were?
To be perfectly honest, the short answer is Barton Peveril. Okay. It's Barton Peveril is to make Barton Peveril commercially viable, and it's something, yeah, we are looking at, and how do we take that differential, and how do we do something with our fare structure for Barton Peveril. So Barton Peveril, to make the 24 viable, we had to look at the pricing and how we priced West End, and it is something. It's not fixed. It's not something we say no, we're not going to change that, and it will depend on commercial viability. If the numbers of the 24, the 14 grow, yeah, it might be a case of we did move it. The zone used to start at the top of Town Hill, Megason Avenue, and we moved it right down to Chartwell Green, the Southampton zone, to try and bring it into line with the sort of Swaithland area. But yeah, it is something that we would look at. It's not, yeah, it is to do with the financial viability of the 24 linked to Barton Peveril.
Okay, great. That's really interesting to know. A couple more, obviously, strategic things going on. One is, I understand Southampton introduced their enhanced bus partnership in April 23, and Hampshire had one that I think has existed slightly longer. And then I guess Eastleigh sits on that boundary, sort of wrapped around Southampton. So most services don't originate in Eastleigh, they don't terminate in Eastleigh, they just sort of pass through. How does working in sort of those two enhanced bus partnership areas work? Do they work well together? And sort of what impact does that have, being next to both of them, have on service in Eastleigh?
Richard is probably the best one to answer that because he sits on the board for the Hampshire and the Southampton. It works quite well, as far as I know. We have got some good strategic decision making that happens within them both. Both Hampshire and Southampton for a while were not as, how can you put it, pro bus, but they are now. They're coming on board. They're really quite good. Hampshire has always been very pro bus, as you know. So we do, Eastleigh does do quite well at the enhanced partnerships with both. The Blue Star 2 is a bus service of two halves, might we say, where we, up to Swaithland, it does really well. It's really busy. And then Stoneham Lane gets a bit quieter, except when Barton Peveril's going in and out. And then from sort of the Nightingale Estate to Easton Bus Station, and Easton Bus Station up to Bishopstoke and Faro does really well. So in terms of commerciality, the Blue Star 2 does really well because it how can you put it, it revolves round from Faro to Southampton. We could have 3 bus loads of people, if that makes sense. So it's 3 lots of fares we get. So quite often in bus routes, you will get a lot of people will go on at A and they'll travel to B, whereas people on Blue Star 2 go A to B, B to C, C to D, if that makes sense. So yeah, in terms of the enhanced partnership, you know, there was a lot of coming through for the Blue Star 2, and then obviously when the enhanced partnership, obviously when Horton Heath and everything comes on, the 3 and that going that way is going to get better. So,
great.
Yeah,
and
they
then,
do work well. They do work.
Okay, that's good to hear. And then the other, I guess, big strategic thing that I have some interest in is the future transport zone. Obviously, that's been doing various things, and they keep talking about eventually getting a mobility as a service app out and piloted, though I haven't seen it yet. I just wondered if you had any sort of reflections on how that was going, if there's anything in there that you're particularly excited about, or conversely particularly fed up with.
Is that the Breeze app you're talking about? Then?
Yeah.
That's the Southampton one.
Yeah, so Breeze is doing quite well.
Yeah,
There's had
okay.
more than, I think, 10,000 downloads now, and has been in operation for a while. It has a range of different services accessible, so particularly in the Southampton region, the scooters and bike hire. We're actually going to see the Beryl bikes extend into Eastleigh, so only into the Eastleigh kind of town centre area, but those will be available through the Breeze app as well. And there's ticket purchasing, isn't there? And there's some negotiation happening around ensuring that people are able to buy the best value ticket through the Breeze app at the moment. So
Currently, I think the best way to do it is getting on our app So yeah, so we have to
Right.
try and get across those barriers.
But that is, you know, a multimodal journey planning tool with ticket sales integrated. And I think Southampton, so they're Solent Transport and Southampton City Council have been working on that together. I think they're pretty pleased with the reception that it's getting and the pace at which interest is building in it as well.
Okay.
I mean, mobility as a service is nobody seems to have got it quite right, and I think it's all to do with sort of commercial businesses and what they're going to get out of it. So
I think that those discussions about with different operators, making sure that that there's good integration, and that if you're buying a ticket that's going to give you access to a hire bike and jump on a bus, that the proportion of ticket sale is split fairly. That's the bit that kind of needs to be
complicated.
Yeah. I don't know whether actually whether the community transport services could be included more on things like the Breeze app, where people who have specific travel needs can plan their journeys more easily by so particularly on the timetabled services that you guys run.
Yeah, definitely.
And that a registration process could happen through the app, perhaps. I think that's something I can take back to the enhanced partnerships.
Definitely.
That could be really interesting, couldn't it? We should invite the scooter people and the electric bike people next time as well.
Well, we could definitely invite Beryl. So they're the company who are going to be rolling out so they're going to have 3 types of bicycle. They're going to have electric bikes, manual bikes, and cargo bikes in Eastleigh. There'll be 10 different sites across the town, which will be funded for a couple of years, with the idea that within those years they become commercially viable. They are going to be rolling that out relatively quickly. The county council aims for the money to be spent before the end of the financial year. So I actually think we'll see kit going in quite soon on that one. So they'll definitely be happy to come along at all. Voy, who operate the scooter hire in Southampton, I'm sure they would be happy to come and tell us about the project in Southampton. At the moment, the only areas where electric scooters are legal to use on the public highway are in trial zones, and the DfT have decided not to expand or provide further trial zones until the existing trial zones have been properly assessed. Originally, they were only going to run for a couple of years. Obviously, the pandemic kind of hit in the middle, and they've extended those trials. I know that Voy would give you a very positive picture of usage. I think there's still quite a bit of kind of road safety and driver behaviour type issues that perhaps it's very difficult to report somebody who's riding a scooter dangerously when the registration number is only a couple of inches across, so and you only see them for 10 seconds. So I think there's that bit around kind of what their data is telling them versus what the general public's perception and reality, the actual reality of usage is. So it will be really interesting to see the DfT reports on those trials, and as to whether the government decide to make them a legally usable vehicle on the roads.
Yeah, I'm not sure they are safe to ride, but you certainly get a thrill from a Voy scooter.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So in the States, sorry, I know it's slightly an aside, but in the States, they've trialled scooters, and actually, because you're stood up, you're quite high up, and that makes you quite wobbly. So they've all moved to having seats. So the scooters are no longer standing. Well, it's just an electric platform, isn't it? Really, yeah. But that lowers your centre of gravity. They extend the wheelbase slightly so that potholes are less of a danger. They have broader wheels, so it might be that the kind of the type of scooter is updated. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah.
Okay.
It's an interesting one to watch.
Watch that space then. We probably need to move on shortly. unless anyone else has any other questions that have occurred to them, I will wrap up with one, which is, I guess, for both of you, and I can possibly predict the answers. What's the biggest headache you've got at the moment, the thing that's keeping you up at night, and what's the thing you're most excited about in, say, the next 12 months?
The biggest thing, probably the biggest headache for me is background congestion.
Yeah.
When we, perfect example was the red days when we've got a big game on in St Mary's and there's 5 cruise ships on, and well, the trains were on strike, but they're not on strike just now. We had various days like that during that they were challenging. So it's the biggest thing is congestion. It's really, really difficult to operate. Drivers have only X amount of hours that could be behind the wheel. If drivers don't get their cup of tea, they get very grumpy. So yeah, so it becomes a absolute logistics nightmare, trying to fit everyone in, get everyone their breaks, getting buses running reliably. And we have quite a sophisticated tracking system that goes different colours of red depending on how late buses are running. And when you look at the big screen, it's like a 50-inch screen, and it's just a sea of red. Yeah, you just go. The thing that gets me excited is probably getting electric buses eventually. That is probably going to be. But just now, the biggest thing is getting our new buses. Yeah, that's always good. Yes.
Great.
So I think the thing that feels like the biggest fear is losing service if the SV25 cuts go ahead. And I think the knock-on effect to not only our services but local services as well. The cost of maintaining my buses is a real headache, and yeah, maybe we should have a conversation.
Yes.
So yeah, and also keeping our fleet, good and workable and updated and as green as we possibly can, as efficient in many different ways, financially, economic, all those things. What gives me the biggest wow? I'm new to post as CEO of One Community, and as part of transport. I've been with One Community for a long time, and for me it's about how I'm going to develop not only the transport services but One Community and moving forward, and just bringing us back into the light. I think that's what I would say. Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you both ever so much for your time, and thank you, Kelly, for arranging it and giving us the benefit of your knowledge as well. I always say to guests, you're welcome to stay, but please don't feel that you have to.
Don't have to be honest. We'll smell it.
Super. Well, you're very welcome to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
We'll move on to item 8 then, which is the Corporate Peer Challenge Review, and I'm going to ask Mike to introduce that.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, I think most of you know me. I'm Mike, the Strategy Manager here at Eastleigh. I've just got a very quick presentation to review the headlines ready for the Corporate Peer Challenge Action Plan report that you have in front of you. Let me just pull that up so it gets a bit bigger. You don't really need to see the slides because I appreciate they're quite small there, but it will just help me kind of structure the conversation. So the presentation, I've got about 4 slides that will take 3 or 4 minutes. Just touch on what was the focus of the review to kind of bring that back to light. Touch on the LGA outcome report, which supported the in-person review. Look at the action plan, which we've developed. I won't go through that in detail within this presentation. Obviously, it's been circulated before. You've got the detail there, the kind of the glossy external version of the action plan. I can touch on a couple of the key principles there, and then obviously let you know about next steps around the plan. So again, I might be reiterating myself here. I think a number of you have heard around the CPC before, but the Corporate Peer Challenge is an LGA voluntary tried and tested method of kind of corporate challenge across the sector. The focus for the review at Eastleigh was on 5 kind of key areas. These are local priorities and outcomes, organisational and place leadership, governance and culture, financial planning and management, and capacity for improvement. But in addition, the council also asked the LGA team, Corporate Peer Challenge team, to be mindful of the capacity and capability to deliver the One Horton Heath development in-house. So we had a team of 5 external peers who came to the council from the 17th to the 19th of October. So over 3 days, we had a very intensive kind of period. And they were aligned with some of the kind of key areas for review. So they were able to bring their knowledge and expertise to the council. So the peer team, those 5, they spoke to more than 70 people over 35 meetings. We had 3 work streams happening simultaneously. On the 3rd and final day, we were presented 12 recommendations. I believe a number of the councillors in the room will have been in that briefing itself. They really make up the recommendations of the subsequent action plan. So our action plan is focused around those recommendations. And a couple of weeks after the final recommendations, we received the outcome report, which was broadly very positive, supported those recommendations. Started, for example, with a nice quote around Eastleigh being well-run, successful borough, etc. So gave us a bit of context around the recommendations as well. And again, that's been appended with the papers before you this evening. I do have a link here. I'll just click on it. Hopefully it will open on my screen. This really just shows you, this is the external action plan that we have. So it's being kind of nicely designed up. Again, I won't go through each of the recommendations, but they broadly follow the same format. So we have recommendation in kind of a bold text. We've got some information and narrative around what we've already done. So I think that's quite key in terms of setting the context for some of this. We've provided our next steps in another column against all those recommendations. We've given an indication towards dates, so from and when we're expecting it to be completed by. And also alongside this, we also have an internal version, a more detailed version of this, which is owned by the Corporate Leadership Board, which I'll be returning to monitor over time. Let's go on that one. Sorry, I just need to try and find the presentation again. Here we go. Okay, so in terms of next steps, I'm going to be presenting this same presentation to the Audit and Resources Committee on the 16th of January. Following that, we'll then be going to Cabinet on the 22nd of January. So if there were any questions arising, any discussion which needed amendment today, we can take that to A&R and Cabinet respectively. As is kind of part of the process with the Corporate Peer Challenge Review, we'll be undertaking a check-in meeting with the peer team in around 6 months' time. The LGA will organise that check-in, and that will give us a good opportunity to share this action plan, share updates, progress to the date, etc. We'll also be hosting the action plan online and the outcome report in due course. However, we're also developing now a more consolidated action plan, a monitoring process, which is going to include some of the additional recommendations from other external reports, which you are likely to have been aware of. For example, the DLUT best value notice, which we received as a council on the 19th of December. So actually together, we probably have around 30 recommendations in totality, including these 12 recommendations from the Corporate Peer Challenge. So we'll be bringing that back through the process in due course. We're currently working on that. So thank you. Hopefully that's kind of encapsulated the process, kind of where we got to. summarised where we are. Please, if you have any questions on any of the detail across the action plan, or you want to get back to me at a later date, feel free.
Great. Two, I guess, broad questions from me just to kick it off. What's the time scale for these actions? Are they like 1 year, 5 year type things? And do they sit in their own action plan for now? Do they go into the corporate plan more widely, or?
Yeah, sure. I'd say the majority of them are actually around the year, that we're looking to do from 24 to 25, although some straddle 3 to 5 years and some are indeed ongoing. So there's a bit of a broad a broad range there. In fact, one of the main actions within the CPC recommendations is around embedding all of our recommendations across everything we do. So indeed, that's what we're currently doing. We've got our Directorate Development Plan process, which is progressing to facilitate the quarterly reporting. So we're going to be embedding it in there to make sure it's always on everyone's agenda, so to speak. But again, we are developing a more coherent monitoring process around those individual actions. I guess you could almost look at the action plan which we have as almost like a program, a program of various actions, and each of those individual actions, in particular through the additional external recommendations which we've received, needs a bit of a project plan itself. So it's a bit of a developing phase at the moment.
Okay. So thinking about how this is monitored, it would be good to have this come back to P&P in the future so we can see how it's gone. Is that likely to be sort of maybe a 6-monthly thing or an annual thing? What would fit with what you're planning?
I think we can be flexible with that, to be honest. I mean, the LGA check-in should be around 6 months. So by that time, we'll have had some prepared papers and evidence, etc. So we might be able to come in at that kind of time frame. Again, I think we can be flexible with the wider set of recommendations as well. That might slightly adjust, but yeah, certainly it would be good to bring it forward again, keep this live. That's the key thing, isn't it? About across all these recommendations.
Super. When I read through the action plan, it seemed like it responded quite well to the recommendations and all made sense to me. So I'd seen it a few times by that point. I don't know if anyone else had any comments.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, obviously Hampshire have just launched a fairly wide ranging public consultation about future services. And obviously one man's budget saving is another man's budget cut. So the only thing recommendation 5, which is developing a mechanism for evidence-based understanding of residents' needs to inform choices about service redesign for reallocating staff resources. What we have already done, there are 3 bullet points, and the third one says undertake various service and public engagement work as required. There doesn't seem to be any other mention that I can see. Recommendation 3 also sort of touches on the need, I think, to plan for and explain that some areas of the council will require further investment whilst others may have less resource. What sort of public engagement is envisaged in all this? Because at the end of the day, the work that we do serves the people of Eastleigh, and the people of Eastleigh might have different ideas to me as to what they will spend the money on. So, whilst I admire that obviously lots of thought has gone into this, I'm interested to know how the end user is going to be brought into this system, this process, to work out what it is that's going to be expanded and what's going to be sort of redesigned and what's going to be reallocated. You don't necessarily need to answer that question.
I can give it a bit of a stab if that's okay. So I guess in relation to recommendation 5 in particular around the mechanism for evidence-based understanding, that column, what we've already done to date, and the reference around undertaking various service-led public engagement as required, that's just effectively talking about service-specific engagement, consultations as required, any particular time, for example, biodiversity strategy and action plan, etc. consultations. that type of thing. I guess in relation to recommendation 5 and addressing the significant budget gap. And we've said what we've done, protect customer services, identifying and continue to implement timely savings, etc. Reprioritising, we've spoken about that. And again, it's kind of across a number of the recommendations. I don't think we've really yet kind of coalesced like is how that might include resident
And this
engagement.
goes back to
together.
Mike's previous comment about the fact this is almost a programme and then
Well, yes, I
big projects
appreciate it.
within it.
I'm just interested to know what your thinking is on how you might, because it says undertake customer services review and consider how customer feedback and current customer interactions can be used to improve services. Well, if that's my regular complaint from residents about Anfield Close and food waste being emptied, well, we know that needs improving. But actually, do the residents of Anfield Close want better service for kitchen waste, or would they rather the grass cut? You know, it's finding out that sort of information. I think it's important. I'm just interested in how you see that progressing.
So I think that in terms of looking at that as a project, we're in the stage of kind of scoping out the breadth of that and how we want to approach it. So we haven't got definition around it at the moment, but we're going through that process right now in terms of scoping that out and understanding what type of customer engagement can we do, what kind of resident engagement can we undertake in this space, but how can we also look at information that already exists, so kind of primary research, demographic information from the county council. So I think just looking at different types of information sources and including within that, doing some kind of direct research with our local residents.
Yeah, I know Louise has been thinking about this for a while, so I wondered if she had anything to add.
Well, I'm working with Dee and we've got a meeting next week, is it, to start scoping it out. We need some project management resource for it. Because we're also looking at a wider customer journey in terms of that new housing development and things like that. So yeah, I have been wanting to do it for a long time, so it's really good to get it kicked off. But we want to make sure that we have scoped it. We've looked at what we're trying to do in terms of objectives and make sure that we don't go off on and let it get scope creep. We can stick to a reasonable and deliverable plan. So, and not got the answers just yet, but we will have.
I love the thought of scope creep.
Okay.
I think scope creep sounds great.
Yeah, I think from my perspective on that, and I've been saying this to anyone who listen and several who won't for a long time. But there's been a tendency, I think, in some of the service redesign to be more focused on what the service thinks its needs are than what our customers think they need from the service. So I think for me, that's a good hook in this plan, to be a bit more outward facing and do that sort of hard sort of design thinking work with actual stakeholders.
I just sort of went through all 12 and made my comments because I think you said that's what you wanted, council's comments really. So what I'll do is just email you this instead of going through it all now and take up God knows what time.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, and likewise, I guess if anyone else has comments, straight to mine.
So moving forward to item 12 on the agenda, do you think we can bring this back to the PMP in say 3 months just to see how things are going?
Yeah, I've just written down to add it to the work plan. So yeah.
Can we have a look at the timing around that?
Yeah, let's
6
think
months
about.
might be painful.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, setting a realistic timescale is fine, but it'd be nice to have it come back so we can
Definitely.
see how it's going.
Yeah, happy to do that. Yeah, I think 6 months will probably give us a bit of time to develop some of them. Not all of them actually, but yeah, some of them are going to take, I think, more than 3 months to kind of get motoring. So we've actually got something.
So it's a calendar rather than a stopwatch.
Sorry?
It's a calendar rather than a stopwatch.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Super. Any more on this one? I think we're done. Super. Thank you very much, Mike, for presenting that. Where did we get to? Right, we're on item 9 then, which is the financial assistance policy, and I'm going to ask Liz Hawkins to introduce this one.
Yes, so I brought today the updated financial assistance policy
This is an update to our existing policy, which was last reviewed in 2021, I think it was. This latest update is primarily in response to the continuing high demand we see for the service and the budget constraints that we are experiencing as a result of that, as well as the increasing costs of the adaptations we've provided through our state facility grants, as a result of the cost of living crisis with inflation and material costs all going up. The principal updates to the policy have been to update some of the wording around items into the section around what works are eligible for DFG funding. Really, that's principally to make them just clearer where there's limitations or a limitation to the extent that those might be funded, just so to avoid any ambiguity or uncertainty for clients. We've also updated some of the wording under the conditions that are applied to our grants and loans, that principally are around the requirement to notify us if they, where a grant's been completed, if they choose to move from a property within 5 years of that completion, so that we have that opportunity to make a decision whether, if there's equipment that was provided, whether it's viable for us to recover it, refurbish it and recycle it for another client's use. And principally just making it clear that that's not just a responsibility for owner occupiers, but for all tenures. And if they're housing association tenants, that also applies if they're moving through the home swapper scheme and things of that nature. And then the final update is the removal of our handy person scheme, which was a discretionary function that we provided when we had the budget capacity to be able to provide it. But unfortunately, it was suspended during the pandemic, and we've not been able to reintroduce it, and the budget demands are now such that we don't feel that it's viable for us to continue that, to look to reintroduce it. So we are going to remove that as a discretionary service. Yeah, is there any questions?
Super. Thank you. Councillor Cause sent some questions.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. Yes, she sent me some questions that I'll quickly run through. Hopefully that might answer some other questions that people already have. She had two questions. The first one was around the removal of the handy person service. She wanted to ask whether smaller matters such as changing of a light bulb, faulty electric switches, that sort of thing, with the handy person service going, is that now something that residents would need to source themselves and then apply for funding for those small tasks? The handy person service was always a paid for service. It was subsidised, but it was a paid for service. It would be something that customers, if they contacted the council saying they needed that support, would be signposted to third sector organisations, charities that offer that service. There is no funding that they can apply to for the council for small works. It's not part of what's under the prescribed purposes for what the grant is able to provide. So it is going to be a signposting to existing community support. The other question she asked was in relation to gardens. One of the mandatory criteria for which a grant might be provided under a disabled facility grant is to be able to facilitate access for a disabled occupant to and from a garden. She asked what about the upkeep of a garden if it was getting unkempt. That's not something that's permitted under the Disabled Facility Grant Service, but the council already runs a gardening scheme, which is run by our Neighbourhoods and Green Spaces team, which is subsidised, I believe. So residents, if they are eligible for that, which I think is aimed at the elderly and disabled, so this client base would be viable, they would need to contact our customer service team to apply to go onto that gardening scheme. I think there might be a slight waiting list at the moment, but I don't have the exact figures for that.
Great, thank you. No one's waving. I have one question, which is there was the consultation response from Hampshire. Part C was around asking if a definition or example of religious or cultural factors should be given. I take the point in point 11 that it that a specific definition might be difficult to provide. Not being religious or particularly cultured, I guess I was finding it difficult to think of what impact sort of religious or cultural factors could have on like a DFG.
Would you like me to give you an
Yeah,
example?
yeah.
So one example might be where there's a property that they're needing ground floor bathroom facilities for, and there's a living room and a dining room. Typically, when approaching such a scenario, we would, because there is a second reception room, that would be the room that would be proposed as a adapted and converted into the necessary facilities. It may be that if the family and household in question have certain religious practices, that's their prayer room, in which case it might not be actually available for adapting, in which case it might be we have to look at alternatives as to whether we are partitioning another room within the property or need to look at a small extension or something of that nature, or whether there's an alternative way to do it. So that's where cultural or religious factors might influence the design. But obviously the update has kind of clarified the extent that funding can be put towards those changes in design, so that we are still being comparable and considerate of that whilst not unduly burdening the budget.
Okay, that's helpful. And I can see why trying to define that, which I guess could cover all manner of things you've never thought of in the first place, might be difficult. Dennis.
Thank you. It's not really a question, but I would just like to
You're good at these.
express my disappointment about the handy person scheme being withdrawn. It's not only the fact that it's being withdrawn. Older persons need somewhere that they can go quickly and easily to, that they know about. It's almost like a comfort blanket. And older persons thinking, I know there's this handy person scheme. I know they're the sort of people that will talk to me. I find it difficult to use the telephone. I don't use a computer. I don't really want to be told. Because older people have a thing about the word signposting. And I get, if anyone else tells me their signposting too, and you want to stand up and scream and think, no, I don't want to talk to somebody anywhere else. I know they've got this scheme and that's what I would like. So really it's a complaint. not anything positive, but I would just like to express it.
Yeah, so I guess it's one of those services it would be lovely to run if
you have the budget, obviously.
Yeah, I know it's a resources matter, but
what I will say is there has been conversation with Hampshire around whether or not they've got the open-minded to potentially consider a county-wide service. It's at very early stages. There's obviously no guarantee that 11 districts to all agree, which is very difficult, but it is being discussed at county level as well. So there may be something that comes from the future.
Okay, it'll be interesting to hear what goes on there.
I'd just like to ask a little bit about temporary accommodation to facilitate DFG. I mean, if someone has quite a severe disability where they would even to move, they would need to go to somewhere that is adapted, so they couldn't just really go to a local hotel or another place. They would have to go to somewhere that would cater for their level of disability. How would that work if that person was in housing association?
So normally when there are very high needs, shall we say, that where we need to support them in that temporary period, we would be working with our OT partners in Hampshire with adult services around again working out arrangements for respite within one of the care facilities or other facilities that they have that can cater to those care needs. But that is it's a case-by-case specific decision and discussion with them. And normally, like I say, we work in partnership with our colleagues in adult services to hopefully identify and be able. With us, it's primarily around advising adult services what sort of timescale might be needed for the works and be able to coordinate it, because obviously they'll have very strict times when it will be available. So we need to be able to coordinate with them as to when the client's able to access those facilities, so that we can ensure that work's going to be done and it doesn't get extended, or it doesn't break down and they lose that vacancy that they've got available. So that's principally how it operates in those particular circumstances.
Great. Any more? No one's waving. Good. I think we can take that as noted then. Thank you very much, Liz, for bringing that to us. And you are very welcome to run away. In that case, we're on to item 10, which is the empty and second home council tax premium. And I'm going to ask Declan Kelly to introduce that one, and he is with us virtually.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. Yes, so the purpose of the report is to consider increasing Eastleigh's current level of council tax empty homes premium, but also to introduce a new second home premium charge. New legislation has allowed us to introduce this new second home charge, and it can be effective from the 1st of April 24. So that's what we're going to go ahead and recommend. I think all the financial information, everything is within the report. I haven't had any questions direct, but I'm more than happy to field any questions now if anyone's got anything particular.
Great, thank you. This to me seemed quite sensible.
Yeah.
Actually, if anyone else has questions, Steve.
Yeah, it's only it's the two tables, table 8 on page 97 and table 13 on page 98. It's just a wording of them. There may be some very arcane reason for this, but empty for 1 year or more is a 100% premium. Empty for 2 years or more is a 100% premium.
Yeah.
And the obvious to me says that if it's empty for 2 years, it must be empty for 1 year. And then we get to 5 years when it goes up to 200%. But then it just strikes me it would make more sense if the first two lines just became empty for 1 to 5 years, and then third line becomes 5 to 10.
Yeah, that's a.
And the same on
that's a fair
13.
comment.
You're sort of almost repeating yourself. You're just adding words for no very
yeah.
purpose.
I mean, that was a matrix given to us to complete for our own modelling, so it was just copied across from that. But it's a point taken. Yeah, absolutely. It's a combination of the two lines.
Yeah.
It just makes it easier for simple people like me to understand.
No, that's fair. I think to be fair, I think it was the ones that we had on. It was to differentiate the ones we have on our records that hit either those two premiums. So we've got some that have been vacant for up to 1 year, and we've got some that have been vacant for over 2 years or more. So it's just drawing the separate lines, but the proposed premiums the same. It was just to differentiate how many we've got in each of those categories, if you like.
Thank you.
Probably a stupid question, but on item 5, the last sentence says, with effect from 24, the council can begin to charge a premium once the property has been unoccupied and unfurnished for a year.
So that's
what happens if a property is empty but furnished?
Yes. So that's a trigger for us to indicate that it could be a second home. So they're the ones that are detailed in the table below that, the following table. 176 approximate properties we've got with that banding or that coding, if you like. So yeah, absolutely, we can levy the charge from 2014, but the caveat is we've got to give them a year's notice, so we can't physically collect those monies until 2025, but we can take the process to get the policy set up and take all the remedial action of advertising and.
Okay, I understand all that. I just thought, an empty home can be empty whether it's furnished or unfurnished. So I just wanted clarification on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Alan.
Yeah, that's prompted me to think about one. There's one which I passed on my way here tonight, which I think has been empty for more than 10 years, or no one has lived there for more than 10 years. I think there is still furniture inside.
Really?
But, I mean, the owners have got no intention of moving back in the property. It's an absolute eyesore.
Yeah.
What
It's a
would
waste,
you do
isn't
with
it?
those notifications?
Yeah, I mean, we'd be able to levy the premium, so they're going to have to pay for it to be unoccupied, to try and give them the incentive of doing something with it, either getting it back onto the market or, you know, knocking it down and starting again. So yeah, we're trying to put the penalties in place to incentivize getting these properties up for sale. But you know, you can only put the premiums in place if they're happy to pay that. Then so be it. But yeah, it is a shame when they remain empty for that long, given the particular issues we've got with housing at the moment. But I mean, if you've got exact details, I'd be more than happy to look into it a bit further and see what the actual score is with that one.
Okay. Janice.
Can I be an absolute pedant? If you go down to conclusion, bullet point 22, with the royal accent, do we perhaps mean accent?
I thought the royal accent's
It was with the former Queen.
Royal Ascent. It's Royal Ascent, isn't it? Or I don't know, to be honest. I have to double check the spelling of that one.
Royal
I'll get my Google up now.
ASC.
Yes.
But yes, it will be corrected where needed. Yeah.
Yeah. Fab. I think we might be done on that one. Good. No, I thought it sounds like the right thing to do. As you say, it's absolutely worth getting houses back into occupation, isn't it? Because they're not doing anyone any good.
Absolutely. It's two-pronged as well, because if they do have the levy and they do pay that, then obviously it increases funds to us as well. So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for bringing it here and for sitting through the rest of our meeting while you wait.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Cheers. That takes us on then to item 11 and 12, which we do together, which is Cabinet Forward Plan and our own work programme. We're going to get that CPC review in at an opportune time, 3 to 6 months probably. I didn't see anything else on the Cabinet Forward Plan that I thought we'd want to bring here. And we have done some other work on the work programme, so if you haven't looked at it recently, do have a catch up, because we jiggled some things around to fit them all in. Any comments on work programme? No? Lovely. Obviously, my general invite exists to just let us know if you think of anything. In that case, the date of the next meeting is not as printed on my script. It is the 15th of February, back here at 6:45. So if I don't see you before, I will see you then.